All right, let's move on to our power rankings. So, once again, this is because this is not a representation of how I view the contender list. To be clear, I have to say that every single week because there are a lot of people that jump on that weren't there the first time. But basically, the power rankings are intended to be just who's playing the best basketball within the regular season, with a special emphasis on recency. Although here in the early part of the season, I'm kind of looking at the big picture because we're not even a month into this thing. All right, number 10, the Los Angeles Lakers. They're off to a 6-4 start. They are the 5th best offense in the league, but they are the 5th worst defense in the league. It's been a tale of two teams this year. The Lakers are 5-0 at home, and they are 1-4 on the road. And that's because, in my opinion, their main weakness is perimeter athleticism. Their transition defense has been bad all around, but it's been especially bad on the road. It seems to me as though when they're at home, they can ride the crowd to play hard enough to compensate for some of their perimeter athleticism issues. But when they're on the road, it just feels like the other team's a runaway freight train right now. Here's a simple stat to demonstrate that. Yes, the Lakers are the 5th worst defense in the league, but they're actually the 13th best half-court defense. It is strictly in transition where they're getting killed. I expect them to continue to have pretty wild home-road splits until either Jared Vanderbilt comes back, bringing some athleticism, or if they make some sort of trade, just because they're so unathletic on the perimeter and they need to have some more juice in that department. But I think we'll see some pretty hefty home-road splits with them this season. But off to a good start for the Lakers. Again, with the schedule that they played, to be off to a 6-4 start is impressive. Number 9, the Memphis Grizzlies. They won 3 in a row to get to 7-4, despite being without Desmond Bane and Marcus Smart for a while, and without Ja Morant for the last 2 games. Jaren Jackson has been hooping his ass off, providing the volume scoring that they've needed. Scottie Pippen Jr. has slotted in nicely in Ja's absence at the point guard spot. He had a triple-double the other night. Really has been one of the better backup guards in the league to start the year this year. Jalen Wells, again, is just shooting the seams off the basketball, just really aggressive catch-and-shoot three-point shooting. Jay Huff is hooping. He had a nice revenge game against the Lakers the other day. He had a run in the third quarter that was outrageous. They're just super deep with a lot of quality young talent. The only reason I don't have Memphis higher on this list is they've played a favorable schedule. Of their 7 wins, only one of them is against a team that has a record over 500 so far. Number 8, the Minnesota Timberwolves. They dropped the game to the Miami Heat last night in classic Heat fashion. It's funny, I saw the final score, and I think it was like 98-94 or something. It was a really low final score, right? As soon as I saw that, I didn't even watch the game last night. As soon as I saw that, I was like, bet you the Heat ran a ton of zone. Like that just, as soon as I saw that, I was like, this just looks like Eric Spoelstra janked up this game with like a bunch of defensive scheming. And so then when I went back and checked on it this morning, the Heat ran 18 possessions of zone in the fourth quarter, completely wigged out Minnesota's offense. Minnesota was up by 8 with 4 minutes left and blew it. Minnesota made 2 crucial mistakes late. Conley drove baseline against the zone and shoveled a pass to Julius Randle cutting down the middle, but he put too much juice on it, and the pass went through his hands, and Miami went out and got a bucket on it. And then on the final possession, when they were up by 2, and they just needed to contain on the inbound, they somehow, I honest to God, don't know what the hell they were doing. They lost Nikola Jovic in the front court with no help as they were trying to deny on the inbounds, and he got a layup with an and one, and suddenly Miami gets out of there with the win. So definitely a classic kind of Miami Heat, Eric Spoelstra fest to get a win there on the road in Minnesota. But Minnesota had won 6 out of 8 before that. They have wins against Denver in there, wins against Sacramento in there. They're top 10 in both offense and defense to start the year. They're 8th in offense and 8th in defense. Ant's jump shot. This has been the big thing. I put Ant as the 5th best player in the world coming into the season. A lot of people disagreed with me. The main foundation of that opinion was I think Ant's jump shot is real. I thought we had a large sample in last year's playoffs into Team USA this summer. We're on 142 attempts to start this year, and Ant's getting 1.25 points per jump shot. He's an apex athlete that is adding an apex jump shot to his game. Again, obviously, the zone caused some problems for Minnesota last night, but I think Ant's off to an incredible start. Julius Randle is also averaging a very efficient 21 points per game to start the year. I think Minnesota's only going to go up from here. Number 7, the Los Angeles Clippers. They won 4 in a row, including wins against Dallas and Sacramento, and they are 4th in defense. Again, as I said before the season, one of the reasons why I was so high on the Clippers, not as like a championship threat, but as just a team that would win a lot of regular season games, is that they are just loaded with a lot of perimeter speed, specifically guys that can guard multiple positions. And I thought that would give them such a high defensive floor that James Harden would be able to at least do enough offensively to win some games. And for them to be 6-4 without getting anything from Kawhi Leonard to this point, I think they have 3 wins against teams that are 500 or better already. Like, even if you were to say to me, this Norman Powell stretch is unsustainable. Norman Powell's playing really well. He's averaging 26 points per game on 67% true shooting. He's probably going to be a pretty significant trade target at some point this season. But even if you were to tell me that that's not sustainable, I feel like James Harden hasn't been nearly as good as he's capable of. And so even if Norman Powell kind of comes back down to earth a little bit, James Harden should continue to get better. Kawhi Leonard will eventually rejoin this team. Got a lot of young guys playing well. Amir Coffey over the win streak, shooting 59% from 3 on 4.3 attempts per game. Like, this was a team that I like. Every year I kind of get like keyed in on different basketball concepts that I think are really driving the league. And anybody who's been listening to my show to start this year, or even extending back into the playoffs last year, I'm obsessed with the concept of perimeter speed. I think you have to be fast on the perimeter. I think, like, look at the top defenses in the league. If you look at the top like 7 or 8 defenses in the league, it's like, I think I listed them down here. Yeah, like if you're Oklahoma City, Orlando, Golden State, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Grizzlies, the Celtics, the Rockets, the Timberwolves, all super fast. Oklahoma City, just a ton of fast dudes on the perimeter. Orlando, Jalen Suggs, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. You're looking at like they just have like they're so damn fast. Anthony Black is fast. They're just fast, right? The Golden State Warriors, just waves and waves of guards. The Clippers, waves and waves of speed. The Grizzlies, waves and waves of speed. The Celtics, waves and waves of speed. The Rockets, just so many young athletic players. The Timberwolves, so many young athletic players. It's just, you have to be fast on the perimeter to guard these modern NBA offenses. And it just, I think it's been one of the biggest lessons I've learned about the pro game here over the course of the last couple of years. But yeah, that was why going into the season I was so high on the Clippers. Right now I have them at number 7. Number 6, the Denver Nuggets. They completely stabilized their season in 2 weeks. They won 5 in a row. They're now 7-3, up to the 4 seed in the Western Conference. They're 6th in offense, 18th in defense. Nikola Jokic has an absolute stranglehold on the best player in the world title. The young players are starting to pop. Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, and Julian Strawther are all playing good basketball. They're starting to look more and more like the team that I thought they would look like before the season. Number 5, the Oklahoma City Thunder. They've lost 2 of their last 3 to Golden State and Denver, although they did lose Chet Holmgren to a hip injury early in the Warriors game. The next few months are going to come down to their small ball looks. This is going to be really interesting with Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren both out. But this year, they've run 379 possessions without either of Chet. Obviously, Hartenstein's missed the entire year. But with Chet and with their bigs off the floor, they're actually plus 12 per 100 possessions and 379 possessions. And again, Golden State's a really bad matchup for them in that context because they have the speed to really contain on the perimeter. And so, like, I'm not overly keyed in on that game from last night. But we're going to see a much larger sample size now of Oklahoma City and their small ball looks. And this does leave the door cracked open for a Western Conference team to take the 1 seed from them if someone plays well enough here over the next couple of months. Number 4, the Boston Celtics. And again, before you Celtics fans freak out, obviously, I think that the Celtics are the clear championship favorite to this point in the season. The only reason I have them down at 4 is because they're 9-0 against teams that are below 500, and they are 0-2 against teams that are 500 or better. Do I think that's a real representation of the Celtics and what they're capable of? No, I just think that's small sample size noise. But for the purpose of these weekly lists, I'm going to give some other teams the nod in these power rankings. For contender rankings, to me, the Celtics are basically in cement at number 1, and I don't know what I'd see this year that would change my mind. It would have to be a very large sample size of another team looking like a better basketball team. They dropped a game to Golden State last week without Jaylen Brown, but they did have an impressive come-from-behind win against the Bucks yesterday. We covered that game at the beginning part of this show. Peyton Pritchard looks like the clear 6th man of the year. Helped them come back from a deficit in the first half yesterday with 17 first half points. Tatum is having another one of his classic seasons where he's up over 30 points a game on over 60% true shooting. They're getting really good production at Neemias Queta as like a legit backup center prospect who continues to get a lot of trust and a lot of minutes from Joe Mazzulla. Celtics are fine. Just have them down at 4 for the purposes of this list. Number 3, the Golden State Warriors. They got smacked by the Cavs. But the Cavs are the NBA's great enigma right now. We'll get more to them in a minute. They went 4-1 on the road trip. And yes, I know that Chet and Jaylen Brown were out for Boston and Oklahoma City, but I thought the road trip was a nice proof of concept for what this Warriors team build is, which is like waves and waves of speed, like we were talking about earlier with the Clippers. Like you just have to be fast and able to cover ground on the perimeter to pressure the basketball to make teams uncomfortable. And then they have all sorts of guys that can come off of screening actions looking to score, which has allowed their offense to function at a really high level. And then the final piece of it all was Steph, right? I talked about it going into the season. Steph didn't look like a top 10 player to end last year, but my prediction was that he would return to that level this year because I thought it was just a slump to end last year. And 2 games against 2 elite defenses in big-time road situations at Oklahoma City and Boston. He had 36-5-7 against Oklahoma City, 27-7-9 against Boston. That's 2 high leverage games where Steph played like an absolute top-tier superstar. And so if you piece that together with this team, with all this depth, with their rock-solid foundation in terms of their scheme on both ends of the floor, with who they have at the head coach, they have a deal to make at some point this season if they want to bring a legitimate number 2 next to Steph. Hard not to be just incredibly excited if you're a Golden State Warriors fan. Number 2, the Phoenix Suns. KD is out for a bit, and they dropped a game to the Kings in overtime last night, but they're 8-2. They're tied for the 1 seed in the West. And even though they haven't been dominating games start to finish, they've been methodically walking teams down at the end of games. KD has been the driving force on both ends of the floor. The Suns are 13th in offense, 13th in defense, but they're 7-1 in clutch games, elite on both ends of the floor. Same sort of thing. KD just flying around, protecting the rim in rotation, defending on. They consistently will put him on the ball in end game situations when they need to, if there's a specific guy that has it going. And then he's just walking teams down at the end of games with ball screen action with one of the Suns guards to get a smaller defender on him, and then just going to the elbow, and he's just getting easy shots all night long, making good passing reads out of it. Suns have been playing great basketball to start the year. And the number 1. The Cleveland Cavaliers, the biggest surprise of the NBA this season, just beat the living shit out of a good Warriors team the other night. We talked about the key factors earlier last week, like the fact that they're switching more, which is forcing more turnovers. They're getting out and running in transition more. There's a lot more Mobley on the ball. But to take it to an even simpler level, it felt like last year that Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen were the only like really rock solid guys in the starting lineup. And it felt like Darius Garland and Evan Mobley was like any given night, you didn't know what you were getting. Sometimes Darius looked great. Sometimes he looked terrible. Sometimes Evan looked great. Sometimes he looked terrible. This year, it just feels like both of those guys have been way more consistently great. And so they went from having 2 guys who are consistently great in their starting lineup to 4 guys who are consistently great in their starting lineup. And it's just made them feel like they're a different tier of team than they were last year. On Wednesday, I'm recording it on Tuesday, but we're airing it on Wednesday. Carter Rodriguez, half of the Chase Down podcast that covers the Cleveland Cavaliers, is coming on the show. We're going to do a deep dive in the Cleveland Cavaliers. Looking forward to it. Carter's, I am still a little skeptical about Cleveland within the championship context. And I really just want to get Carter's opinion and just have him, obviously as someone who's very, very, very closely following that team through every single possession this year, just kind of get his take on things. So you guys can look forward to that on Wednesday.